Hi guys, Doug here with a new video, and this video will be a Unholy DK PvP guide video for 10.1.5. Should have been previous week, but I had a lot of things going on, and some videos came up because again, it was the news of the day. And right now with Unholy DK, I feel like I can safely make a guide for. I want to talk about some very specific things. So the things that I want to discuss are stats. We're going to talk about everything, the four set, but also the stats that you should go for, at least the stats I do like to play. And we're going to talk also about the Rune Forge thing. Again, it's very basic. It's going to be like 1 second or two. Then we're going to talk about the talents that you should go for. The two builds I'm playing currently. Yes, you can play multiple builds. There are actually like a bit of like 5 or 6 builds that you can actually play as Unholy DK, which is actually a kind of a blessing. And not a lot of specs actually have that. If you're thinking about BM Hunter, for example, they only have like one build and that's it. Like there's little to no variation. I would even say no variation. And like for example, Unholy DK has like a lot of builds that you can go for. Of course, they are like more meta builds. Mine I think is a meta build because I do like to play. I do huge damage with it. But again, I see everyone actually make their builds work. So pick and choose what you are actually liking, just try out and you will see. We're going to talk about also the comps that you can play in 2s, in 3s, also talk a bit about a soul shuffle and also RBGs a bit because again we have a lot of RBG viewers, RBG subscribers and players, so I want to also address that as well. Although it will be very short, and we're going to talk about also the most important thing, the rotation and your burst rotation and what you can actually look for to get kills. And then we're going to talk about macros and tips and tricks. All right, let's talk about stats. So we are running mastery mostly, and then we have like haste, and then we have like a bit of versatility, of course, because of the conquest and because of how versatility works. And we're going to talk about the four sets, which I'm running with head, shoulders, chest, and gloves, and we have legs as an extra, where you can also just make a PvE crafting leg that you can also make mastery if you want to. But for me, haste is still a good start for Unholy DK, and I don't need to go full on mastery. But if you want to go full on mastery, I can understand that, and you can make some crafting legs with your stats that you would like to go for. We're going for the two embellishments, so I'm going to talk about it. We talk about the primary stat that you get whenever you are applying a loss of control effect, which is going to give you a good burst potential. And we're going to play with Zen Zone of Focus, so granting you mastery again. Mastery is a huge stat for Unholy DK. It augments every single damage that you can actually apply with minions and shadow damage abilities, which we are running with Clawing Shadows. So you have full on increase on your main spender, which is just too good. We're playing human, so we have double trinket, but you don't really want to go crit. So if you have like the epic obsidian, I would say the gladiator insignia, not the badge, I mean, for ferocity. I would just not go for it because it's crit. I would just go for the normal trinket, and then you have like a more reliable anti CC thing, and then you have like double trinket every single minute, which is quite nice. And then just go for the insignia alacrity one, which is going to give you huge haste benefits and also like a proc chance on the trinket. And that's more or less what we are going to talk about stats. I think the 4 set is one of the best 4 sets in the game. So you have Death Coil and Epidemic, gaming damage increase by 10%. I think it's 5% in PvP, I don't know, but it's in damage increase for Death Coil. And whenever you're casting Death Coil, you're going to. I'm not going to talk about Epidemic because it's not applicable. We're not going to use that in arenas. Do not use that. I think also in RPGs you do not use it as well. Grants a stack of Master of Death up to 20, and then Dark Transformation will consume those stacks, which will grant 1% mastery for each stack. That is going to be lasting for 25 seconds, which is insane. It does a lot for you. It does just insane amount of burst, and that's why I'm playing like the build I'm playing. You will see. And in general, you're going to feel good having your forset, and it will just like enable you pretty hard. And what you have is also the forset, which is going to even more ease up how you are going to burst. You can just go from the get-go with the Army of the Dead, which will grant you 20 stacks of that, and then whenever you're going to use your dark transformation, it is going to consume it, which is going to apply the mastery stacking, which is insane. Again, also whenever you're going to consume sudden doom, um, you will gain 1 extra stack of Master of Death, but also 10% mastery for 6 seconds. So it's also on top of everything. So you're going to have the 20% mastery, maybe 10% in PvP, I think. And then on top of that, you will have 5% mastery as well. So you will have 15%. I think maybe in PvP it's still 20% mastery though. Don't quote me that. I don't remember, but we'll see on the dummy. But it's going to be still a huge damage increase, and you are like having to go for. And yes, you have like silly stats, like for example crit first, which is not the best stat for unholy DKs, but also not for frost DKs. We have crit mastery here, but we have more mastery, so it's just going to be fine. And that's it. Like those are the silly stats, but you don't want to sacrifice your legs, because legs are going to give you some pretty good stats, and chest and your head will give you some great stats for unholy DK, but also for frost DK. So it's going to be quite nice. So those are the stats. Let's talk about rune forging. You only want one, which is basically the Fallen Crusader. It's going to heal you, it's going to give you strength, and if everything is combining and everything is lining up, you're going to do so much damage with your Clouding Shadows and wounds proccing that really, realistically, people cannot survive except if they are peeling from you, which is the thing that is actually something that Unholy DK just do not like. We're playing with Fallen Crusader all the time, 99.99%, except whenever I'm testing things, but realistically, nothing is really comparing to Fallen Crusader. Now let's talk about the builds. We have 2 builds. I'm going to talk about the build that I'm playing the most, and then I'm going to talk about the build that I'm playing the least. This one, the class tree, has a few points where you can actually interchange. For example, you can remove improved death strike and go for Wraith Walk if you're thinking you're going to be rooted or perma rooted, like especially versus boomies, or for example versus frost mages. I would just go for Wraith Walk, for example, instead of improved death strike. Anti-magic barrier, again, you can also opt out if you're facing like double melee, which has no magic like magic damage, for example. You can go for Wraithwalk as well. Sometimes you can play with Death Pact, although it's really not that great, and it gets affected pretty hard by dampening. You're going to have to use it in the beginning of the match, and then try to not use it, because the incoming healing equal to 30% of your max health is not affected. So you will effectively heal you less than actually having the absorb. That's not a good thing. You also have like sometimes the need of having unholy endurance if you're facing, like, let's say a warlock that is really fear happy, but that is still nothing that you have to take. It's something you can take. You also have a Diff's reach, which is going to increase your 10 yards. But if you feel like you're playing versus like double melee and you're pretty much like melee, you can play with Grip of the Dead, which is again going to slow them even more in your Death and Decay, which is also quite nice. And you can also spend that 1 point elsewhere if you want to play, for example, Unholy Bond for the 10%, or if you want to play Blood Draw, although that is really bad, so do not take it. You can also take the Cold Thirst for having like reduced cooldown on your interrupts, which is one of the better interrupts in the game as well. And that's it. That's pretty much how you want to go for. But I'm playing mostly with this. I did try to play, let's say, Soul Reaper. The problem is, I think it would be so much better if it actually didn't cost a rune and it actually cost runic power. I think that would be actually something that you would like to apply every single time. But runes are not something you are going to lack most of the time, but whenever you're lacking, you really do not want to spend it on a Soul Reaper, which is effectively going to get countered by either a Dispel or either by a healing effect. Like again, if you heal, you top the enemy. If the enemy gets topped off, this is not going to have any impact. But whenever it procs and you have like everything lining up, it can do some pretty hefty damage. Already hit it for a normal hit of 90k, which is, again, if you're low HP and you're hit by 90k, then you also have like clawing shadows and wounds to actually like apply to them. They're just dead. But the problem is it's getting them low and also having the rune to actually spare to use the Soul Reaper and keep them low as well. So I do play it sometimes because this is only a 5% increase in haste, which is not that great, let's be honest. But what I do like is generating rune and 5 runic power every single 5 seconds and also instantly. So again, you can actually just keep on hammering for 20 seconds and you will feel like pretty much like limitless and without any resources because it will be irrelevant. But it's a 2-minute CD, it's only 5% haste, so I played a bit of Soul Reaper, I played a bit of Empower Rune Power. I think this is probably the most meta way to play. If you want to have fun, you can play also with Soul Reaper. The good thing is about IC talents is it's going to be always something you will have because you're going to spend death coil literally whenever you can, especially whenever it's a doom proc, a sudden doom proc. And increasing your attack speed melee is going to help you to get more sudden doom procs, so it will be even better for your damage. So that's also a great thing. Overall, class tree pretty basic. Try to always go for like that kind of like class tree if you want to. You can also go for sacrificial pact, although you will have to sacrifice something very interesting. For example, I don't know, anti-magic barrier or improved death strike. But it's up to you to decide what you want to go for. Of course, you have like one of the better things, which is cleaving strike. So whenever you have death and decay, and they are like double melee or triple, you can actually do insane damage, especially if you have like a lot of moons on everyone. Can cleave like everyone pretty easily, especially with sudden doom and actually having your improved death coil hit on multiple enemies. Now let's talk about the spec tree. And there's a lot of variation. I think a lot of people will turn their eyes and say, oh my god, this is not the build I'm playing and I'm having success with another build. That's all fine. I saw multiple people actually play with Commander of the Dead. Personally, I'm not really a fan of it. I understand why people play it. I'm not a fan of it. I like this way of playing. This is actually making you really powerful. And whenever you're pressing Dark Transformation, it lasts for a long time. And also, it is also more often up. So you have like your Apocalypse and your Dark Transformation like lining up. You can do Dark Transformation every single Apocalypse, and that means a lot of damage on the wounds procs because again, you have your mastery proc from your 4-set plus also all the wounds popping at the same time, which is going to result maximum damage. There are a few things that are maybe a bit annoying. I do like Call of Devastation, but I have to sacrifice it to get Unholy Command to get like the 15 seconds reduced CD. That is on my second build. You also lose Super Strain, which is effectively going to lose some pad damage. But do not worry, even with the most meta build where people are taking Super Strain, it is not even like 2% of your damage, the dots that you are having with Fever and Blood Plague. And Morbidity is actually nice, but you will have to sacrifice Ghoulish Frenzy, which in my opinion is working very well if you have like all the modifiers to reduce the CDs, but also have your Dark Transformation. Also, the longer it actually like is going, the longer you will have Ghoulish Frenzy. So again, I do like this build very much. It just gives you some good on-demand damage, and it is actually going to say, look, you are the Unholy DK, but the damage is going from you, and everything is coming from you. So your minions do no damage, your pad damage, which is the dots, are doing literally no damage, but your death goal is hitting like a truck. Your clawing shadow is hitting like a truck, your wounds is hitting like a truck. Every time you have an apocalypse, it looks like the HP is going to drop to bottom for them. Every time you have like everything lining up, for example, Unholy Assault, which is also nerfed. Again, the haste is also nerfed for PvP. Empower Rune Weapon, Dark Transformation, and you have like everything going up with also the mastery proc from the tierset, and then you do a big apocalypse. Every single apocalypse will do between 130k and 180k, depending if it's crits, depending if they have defensives or not. But it's really reliable, and you can actually nuke people with that. We're playing with bursting swords again. In AoE situations, it does a lot of damage, like the AoE proportions, but also the bursting of fistering wounds deals 20% more damage. It's actually very nice. It does a lot of damage as well. I see a lot of people also play with Ebon Fever. Again, it's also a good choice, but I do prefer to have myself, and I actually do the damage. It's more reliable. I like it. It is also more oomph, and a lot of people are like chatting me at the end of the game saying, "What the hell is that damage? Why? How did you actually crit me that much?" And yes, a sudden doom proc of a death claw can crit for insane amounts, and you know death claw is like a runic power ability without CD, so if you're doing like 100k on it, it's pretty much free, especially since a sudden doom proc is also going to improve your clouding shadows on the target, and clouding shadows is also hitting like a truck. I already critted for 100k on it, plus also the wound that is also going to get bursted, so every time you're going to clouding shadows, it's literally a like nuke bomb that you are going to drop on their heads. I really like that. Also, if they're low HP, they're pretty much dead with reaping. So also a great thing. You have a lot of variety, so I'm going to discuss about it on the second build. But let's talk about PvP taunts really quickly, because I think with this build, if you're trying it out and you're actually enjoying it and you know how to play with it, you're going to love this build. I personally don't play the second build too much anymore, because I do like how it plays this one. Because I like Dark Transformation to be up like more often, and also a longer duration for the 10% more damage. Yes, morbidity is going to give you a reliable 6% increased damage because of diseases. I think also a bit more with Call of Devastation and such, but this is more up. This is just good, especially since Holy Paladins can actually dispel a lot of your disease with just one PvP talent. Morbidity is like a no-go versus them, while Ghoulish Frenzy is actually a very good thing for them. So, PvP talents, I have a few ones that I play. They fixed the bug with Doomburst, so you can actually play it now. You can actually reliably play now. Now you will see, if you're playing with Doomburst, you will have like a Fifth Festering Wounds starvation at one point in the game. You may like it or not. I personally prefer Strangulate. I think it's like a win condition on most comps and social foes that I play. I also think your CC rotations and your CC potential is way higher because of that. You are like a Shadow Priest of the melees, basically. You can just set up CC for yourself, and you often can win games by yourself. So that's actually what I really like about Strangulate. Doomburst, I tried it, I really like it, but I prefer Strangulate. Spell Warden is something I can play, but that's really not that great, to be honest. It actually sacrifices AMS from yourself, so you have to put it on someone else. It's good for your ally, but sometimes you want to like stop CC up onto you, and AMS is actually ideal for that. But if you're doing on an ally, you're actually counting on the ally to do the job that they have to do, which is DPS or heal. And I prefer to count on myself, especially in solo shuffles. Life and Death is RBG potentially good, but I'm not never playing it. Dark Simulacrum is actually a good talent for Frost DK because you don't have a lot of choices, while Unholy DKs has a lot of choices. Go figure. Reanimation does okay damage, but it is nerfed multiple times, and now it's like more of a niche thing. You don't really take it all the time. Necromancer's Bargain is nice, but it's only 30 seconds Apocalypse now instead of like a 45 one. The Crypt Fever is actually quite nice. It adds up, but I do not think it's like valuing Strangulate. I think like Strangulate on the healer can often result to a kill. I don't think like having Crypt Fever is going to result to a kill. It's more like pad damage, really. Rot and with never play it. I don't like it. It's really a blood decay thing, and still, even them, they don't really have a lot of benefit from it. But Forge is quite nice versus physical damage dealers, for example, melees, outlaw rogues, warriors. But you have to see, like, especially in social, because you have multiple rounds, try to feel who is the target. If you are the target, take it. If you feel like you're not the target, which should not be the case, they should not be dumb and should go for you. But if they're dumb and they're not going for you, well, do not play Bloodforged, pretty much. But if you feel like they're going for you, you can play Bloodforged. You'll be a bit more tanky, but you will have to Death Strike most of the time to get it. And it's not something I really like to do. It doesn't apply a lot of healing, so it's a PvP talent that is actually welcome, but it's like you're gimping yourself by Death Striking, because you're going to apply less pressure with Death Coil, for example. But you're going to gain some defenses because of it. I feel like if they could actually like rework it to for Death Coil, like if Death Coil reduces all physical damage taken by 20%, that would actually be very nice. But since it's Death Strike, you have to go out of out of your way, actually, like Death Strike spam, because again, you don't only want to have it for 3 seconds, you want it to have it for the whole duration of the match, pretty much. It means that you will deal a lot less damage, so you're gimping yourself to get more like tanky. So why play Unholy DK if you want to be a tank, for example? So that is the main thing I don't like about Bloodforged. We have Necrotic Aura, obviously increases your damage, and it's also like I said in the tier list, more of a cast meta. You will see a lot more casts in Soul Shuffle, which will enhance their damage, which is quite nice. Necrotic Wounds is a no-brainer. Just always play that, except if you're playing twos versus like double DPS that have like little to no healing. For example, I don't know. For example, BM Hunter, and they're playing with an assassination rogue, for example. Do not play Necrotic Wounds, play something else. But after that, you're going to face a healer, so play with Necrotic Wounds. It's free healing for you, but also free healing reduction. You can see it like that towards the enemy. It's not a MS effect, but it's the most closest thing you can have as a DK, so pretty much you have to take it. I wish it was like a more of a passive thing, but it isn't, so it is what it is. Now, let's talk about choose. I don't know, let's talk about the second build. I forgot about it, which I called All for One. Basically, you are going to play the meta build, pretty much. You can call it like that. People play mostly this. Why? Because you have morbidity, which is not relying on the dark transformation, so you don't put everything on the dark transformation buff, so you have all the time a lot of damage, which is respectable. I understand that. Cold Devastation actually does a lot of damage. I think it's like overall 8% or 7% of your whole match, which is quite nice. Have mobility, which is going to help you to do some good sustained damage. Super Strain, which is basically pad, and you have also like Death and Decay, like having a chance on Festering Wound, especially versus melees with the cleaving strikes. It can do a lot of cleave damage, which is quite nice. The thing that I do like is that Super Strain is not really adding too much damage. It's actually just you have to take it if you take morbidity. I like Call of Devastation, but you have to sacrifice the Dark Transformation uptime, which effectively with Forset gives you more damage. So again, you have to see how you want to play it. Personally, Pestilence is not always useful versus casters, for example, and you have to apply Death and Decay. It's not always something you want to do. So you're actually effectively going to use one, two talents that you don't really want for mobility to work, and also Call of Devastation. That is actually a good talent, but it's a talent that you're going to use. So pretty much you have like 2, 3, 5, 6 talents that you're going to use. In contrary, like 2 talents with Goldish Frenzy, 2 talents with Unholy Command, and 1 talent with Eternal Agony. So that's pretty much how I see it. But again, you can like it, you cannot like it. The kind of rotation is the same, to be honest. So that's a good thing. You're not changing anything. There are multiple builds also about minions. If you like minion builds, I might make a video in the future, which is quite nice. It's fun, but it's not like the most meta thing to do, because you're more relying about minion AI, and also people can line the ghoul. People can also just root every single minion that you have. and raise a bomb doesn't exist anymore, so your command of the dead does just less damage. That was actually something that I really liked with raise a bomb. You can already use that multiple times. It's a 3-minute CD, the gargoyle, and raise a bomb was 1.5, I think, and also reduced with Army of the Damned. But now it's not the case anymore. And Army of the Dead is something that is actually like an 8-minute CD, and the problem is you're only going to have like one use in soul shuffle of that, and maybe 2 uses maximum in 3s and in 2s, depending on the situations. If the games are really long, which is not really that often. So that's the only unlucky thing. So you're going to put everything behind like big CDs, which often not is not enough to win the game. So that's why I'm not really a fan of this build. Um, and you have some pretty neat talents, but you don't have the points for it. Like, for example, Unholy Pact was always something I really liked, even without the 5% increased strength that you had with like Shadowlands, for example. It was always something I really enjoyed because the damage was really nice. You wanted to position yourself between your pet and yourself to do the most damage possible, but you don't have the points for it. And you also have a build which is revolving around AoE with Defile, again increasing your mastery, which is also quite nice, and having a lot of AoE cleave. But Unholy Blight, also a very good talent, but you don't have the points for it. Unfortunately, everything is locked behind Epidemic, which is not a great talent for PvP. So that's pretty much it. Now let's talk about the comps. So we have 2s, 3s, and Soul Shuffle, also RBGs. In 2s, you want ideally to play with a healer, but you can also play with a great Retribution Paladin that actually knows what he's doing. He knows how to bubble, he knows how to divine shield, he knows to sack, and he knows to do sometimes some off healing, although the healing is really bad for Retribution Paladins right now. That comp just pumps. You just go straight for the healer, you're doing your damage, you're doing your goes, and often than not, you're going to kill someone. It's a really fun. Played a lot of 2s. With a DPS, I had more success than with a healer. Well, the healer wasn't really the best healer out there. But I had a lot of fun with it. I prefer to play with double DPS. The games are very fast. It's win or lose, but it's high adrenaline. It's something that you don't have with 3s and Soul Shuffle. Although you have high adrenaline with Soul Shuffle and 3s, it's really different. In 2s, you're playing versus DPS healer, and you know, look, you're on a time bomb. If you're not killing really fast, you're going to lose. I like that. So I would recommend to play with Retribution Paladin if you want to do 2s with a DPS. I would recommend to play with a Boomy. I would recommend to play with an Enhancement Shaman or with a Shadow Priest. Those are the 4 I really recommend to play if you want to play like double DPS. Yes, you can play with other hybrids. You can even play with Augmentation Invoker, but is pretty much like a healer. But you can play that like that, and people will really dislike you, but you're going to get wins. In 3s, pretty much the comp I prefer the most. Now, I didn't play too much 3s, let's be honest. But whenever I'm playing 3s, I have like comps I prefer to play, which is with a Shadow Priest, with any other healer really, but with a Shadow Priest. You can play with a Demon Hunter, which is really face roll, but it's very fun. You can play with a Warrior, which is TSG, which is more can I say it's a dampening comp? Because I don't feel like Warrior don't do that much damage these days, except with the Augmentation Invoker. But it's a reliable comp. It works versus everyone and anyone. But the CC will have to come from you most of the time. I do like to play with classes mostly, so my biggest bet are Shadow Priest or Boomies. Even Augmentation Evoker, I've never really played it, but I imagine it's very strong with it. Personally, I would go for Shadow Priest or Boomies as your black DPS partner in 3s. Healer wise, it doesn't really matter. Just take the healer that is actually the best out of your friends or LFG. Class don't really matter these days. I think you should play. You should take the player over the class most of the time, especially in PvP. That's my opinion, of course. Solo shuffle. I want to talk about it a bit briefly. You're going to suffer mostly in melee lobbies if they have a brain. If they don't have a brain, you're going to have a great time. they have to go for you. If they are not dumb, they go for you, and you have to be playing a bit scared, a bit more kiting, and you will have to learn how to kite. I would recommend to play a caster so you know how to kite, and you can apply it as an unholy DK, but also as a frost DK. And you're going to have some good fun, but you have to play around that. If you're playing versus casters, you can just go straight. Be like scared about the great casters that can kite. You have, of course, Clown Shadows, which is unkiteable. It's a 30-yard range, so good luck to them. But you have to apply some wounds, so be sure to apply like as much wounds as possible. Don't go for an apocalypse like straight out the gate, because again, you want to keep some wounds in case if they are actually kiting you, and whenever you're going to track them and actually be next to them, like for example in the next 30 seconds, then you're going to go for a go, and you can actually like eclipse them completely, because they're going to use their CDs because they think they are going to see some go from you because you did like a abomination limb to fake a go, for example, which is a good thing. And then you're going to pop a CD, and then you can actually do your juices with Army of the Dead, Dark Transformation, and then you can just go for a outbreak if you have no dots up, and you can just go for Unholy Assault with Empower Rune Weapon, and then a big Apocalypse with Death Core spam, with a bit of a Cloud Shadow spam, especially if you have like a Sudden Doom proc and you used it. Be sure to do Cloud Shadows to get the extra damage that you get from the PvP, from the talent. So that's a good thing. Overall, Soul Shuffle, there is no mystery behind it, right? Use your CC on the healer. The healer should be very, very, very annoyed by you. And if you're using your Strangulate, your stuns, your blinds, and your interrupts, Mind Freeze, which is a fantastic interrupt, on CD, on them, they're going to cry very, very fast. And they are going to see their melee DPSs or casters not having a brain and not knowing that their healer is actually CC'd, and they're not going to pop a CD, and they're going to die. So that's how I play, that's how I work, and I find like very effective in most games I'm playing. RBGs, let's talk quickly. You have huge damage. Just use your damage, use your CC on the healer. Try to coordinate like the CC with your RBG group if you're on Discord. If you're not on Discord, well, too bad. Just play like a random BG, but you can make it work because of the damage you have. Overall, you can play more of a pad damage build. Again, depending on the build that you play, and you will have huge damage on the meters, or you play like a single target build, like for example this one, and you can have huge, meaningful damage depending on the situation. Sometimes you want both, but you're insane. And on the orbs map, if you take the orb, you're going to one-shot people with Clawing Shadows, which is quite funny. I would recommend to do that as well. Now, let's talk about rotation. It's very simple. You want to apply wounds, and you want to consume those wounds with your Clawing Shadows. You want to use your Sudden Doom procs very, very rapidly, because it will increase your Clawing Shadows damage. I'm going to just give out first the rotation, just the normal rotation, the damaging things that you need to do damage consistently, and then I'm going to do the burst rotation. The burst rotation, I'm going to just do it once, because I have Dark Transformation, but I also have Army of the Dead, which is a 8-minute CD. I don't want to wait 8 minutes again, so I'm going to use it and show you guys how you can start the game very, very quickly and do a lot of damage from the gate. So to do some sustained damage, you want to have like 6 wounds, for example, have your outbreak, and you will have your Sudden Doom proc, and you will see you have like the Rotten Touch, does a lot of damage, and you're going to apply your Clown Shadows, and it will do some insane damage. I'm going to show you my damage proportions, and I'm not really like bursting right now, right? I don't have my Dark Transformation yet, I have nothing, and it does some good damage. Like, it's really, really patty, but with that, you already have a lot of the pressure that you can have as a unholy DK. The damage is a bit lower on the dummy, you will see. If you are playing on the dummy and you're going into a normal PvP scenario and you're going to hit a real player, your wounds is going to do insane damage, like in proportions with the dummy. The dummy is like very, very wrong. Restoring wounds doesn't do 15k. It does a lot more. It does a lot more. If I can show you one of those games. For example, this one. So this is a normal twos game. I don't know if we won. I think we won. Death goal hits for hits for 91k even, depending on if you have like all stacks up, like everything up. Your festering wounds does 47k, and sometimes like mostly it's 37k, 33k, but at top like top maximum buffs on you and whatever you can actually apply to get like more damage, it can do up to 47k normal hit. If it crits, it can go even higher, like for example 56k. And then you have clawing shadows, which is and can go up to 80ks. They can also crit for way more, and they can also hit for a bit less, but it's always between, I would say, 40ks, 60ks, 70ks, 80ks, depending if you have the sudden doom procs, for example, and then your festering wounds up like on that. So you have like, for example, your clawing shadow, which is, let's say they're doing 60ks, which is probably what is happening in most of the games, and you have your festering wound actually pop for 30k. I'm going to keep the damage low and still going to be more than anything you have versus you. Like an arms warrior is not going to reliably do 90ks every single hit. But a unholy DK can actually do that without spending a CD. But if you're spending CDs, then it's going like way out of their league. Like again, Clouding Shadows doing 80ks, and then your Festering Wound, let's say they do 40k or 47k, it can go up to 130k every single global you're going to press. So it's going to help. Plus your minion is also going to be there. Plus your like Virulent Plague is still going to be there to do some damage. So it's all like you have a bit of bad, and then you have like a lot of damage, and every time you're going to do an apocalypse, it's going to do some insane damage. Again, apocalypse by themselves doesn't do too much damage, but the festering wounds that actually proc are actually doing some good damage. So reliably between 120k and 180k, depending if you have every single buff on you, for example. Now, rotation wise, like I said, festering wounds, you're going to proc that, outbreak whenever you can. Of course, that is really low on the priority with this build. It is just pad damage really, and then you're going to do sudden dooms and death goals whatever you can, and also your clawing shadows to actually spend your runes, but also get like more death goals available. And whenever you can, actually just reapply with like a festering strike. Doesn't do that much damage because it's physical, but imagine if it was like shadow, it would be very fun. So that's pretty much how you do your consistent damage. You try to apply your festering strike, you're going to your festering wounds with festering strike, do certain dooms and death calls whenever you can, and do clown shadows to expand those wounds, and have your dots actually always applied on the enemy. You try to have your dots on everyone, but against very low priority, it does like 5k a hit. It's really low. You want to have it up, but it's like a non-factor. You're not playing the dot build, super strain build. If you're playing the super strain build, you have to maintain your dots. You have no other way. But if you're playing versus a Holy Paladin, for example, it gets dispelled with just one flash of flash of light. So, yeah, depending on the people you're facing, I think this one is probably the most one. They did one that is mostly applicable towards most lobbies. So if you want to like burst, of course you're going to do some procs, first reading the strikes to get the procs, get your outbreak, and then you can put your Arm of the Dead. Boom, you have 20 stacks. You're going to expand the stacks of your Dark Transformation, and then you're going to just burst, boom, Apocalypse, and then you can just go with a Unholy Assault, for example, and then you have like a sudden Doom proc, and you can just do a lot of damage with this. And of course, don't forget your Abomination Limb, which is still going to do some good damage. It is nerfed though, but again, you're going to have a great time. Do a lot of damage whenever you can. Try to apply those wounds again with Fracturing Strike, and you're going to be good to go. And then you're going to apply the stunts if you want to. Boom, you're going to Lightning Sleet, Triangulate. You're going to try to interrupt him, and you're going to try to apply the damage whenever you can. Of course, it's always better to play with focus macro, so you don't have to click on someone or tap target. But again, I'm going to show you with the micro section whenever you're going to have multiple macros you can use as an Unholy DK. So that's pretty much the burst build. You want to actually do Army of the Dead first, so you have 20 stacks first. You can of course do Dark Transformation as your first go. It will have little to no effect for your 4 set, but For your next dark transformation, you will have probably 10 or 12 stacks, something like that, with 45 seconds, like the amount of death pulse you can have on the enemies. But if you want to do your biggest goal, you can use your Army of the Dead, dark transformation, Empower Rune Weapon with your Unholy Assault, or you can do directly a Apocalypse and then Unholy Assault with Empower Rune Weapons, so you can actually keep the Assault with Plowing Shadows. Depends about the amount of wounds you have. You can do 2 Festering Strikes and then do your burst, or you can just straight up do Army of the Dead, Dark Transformation, Unholy Assault, Apocalypse, Empower Runic Weapons to actually like keep on the assault on the enemy, and you can do some pretty good damage. Again, try to CC while you're doing it, and you're going to be very good. Again, if you're playing with a Trees partner and he does the CC, it's even better. Or if you're CCing like together, that's probably the best thing you can actually do to get a lot of success with it. Now, what did I want to talk about? Macros. I think macros is also very important. Again, you have a few macros that you want, which is basically the Dark Transformation with Empower Rune Weapon macro. You can just press one button and you will have both, however you like it, with also your emblem. If you do not have the badge, do not use the 14, because then it will use your trinket or whatever. So I really like this macro. I do like my focus macros. It's very simple. Do a I don't know how it's called this, but add focus, I would say, with the thing, to get like mind freeze, and then you put your focus on someone, and you can have some pretty good thing, right? So every time you're going to use your focus mind freeze, it will mind freeze this one, and he will not notice it. What you can do is actually fake it by just targeting him. Boom, he's going to fake cast it, and then whenever he thinks, look, he's not looking at me, then you can just use your mind freeze, and he will lose like 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds. So again, a good thing. You can also use your focus strangulate, again a very big thing. You can also have a strong focus asphyxiate, but I'm playing differently. I use asphyxiate mostly on my kill target, but you can also use your asphyxiate on the healer, but that depends on the situations. What else? You also have a deathcore macro where you're going to heal yourself. Personally, I don't use it that much anymore to use my deathcore on the enemies. I do like the damage, but if you want to heal yourself, you're going to heal yourself for a pretty hefty amount. If you're doing Legeborn and you're going to use that, it will target you instead of the enemy, so you actually don't have to target yourself or do something else to have the healing on you. Again, very nice, especially in twos. I have also a add cursor macro for my def and decay, so I don't have the I only have to click once on my keybind, Shift F, and that's it. You have the def and decay. It's quite nice to have, especially if you are like a League of Legends player. Add cursor is always going to be nice. Also have an add player at the magic zone. Often not, I'm not using it anymore because I don't feel like I can use it all the time. Healers are not playing next to me. But if I feel like we're going to get cleaved, just use it. You're going to be fine. We have also a gnaw keybind, so you can put it on your bars. At least that's how I have it since Wrath of the Lich King on multiple pet keybinds. But you can also put a add focus macro for them, and it will be also perfect, which I will do a macro set for that. So that's pretty much the macros I'm using currently. I also have a Raised Dead Sacrificial Pact macro for Frost Decay, but that's pretty much for Frost Decay, for example. So those are my macros. I want to give some tips and tricks for Unholy DKs, but also for against Unholy DKs. If you're like a melee player or a ranged one that actually watches the guide and you're not really playing a DK, I'm going to give you some tips as well versus Unholy DKs. Again, sorry guys, but I have to give our secrets. Tips and tricks: try to keep your chains of eyes on everyone. It's a lot easier because of this sound proliferating chill. It will give you more spread boots and snares, and it's actually the most busted ability versus melees. Warriors just hate you for that. Try to do a death grip on the healer and do a blinding sleet on everyone. It's actually very cool, and it doesn't remove dots from yourself and from other like casters. I don't know about affliction warlock though. I forgot about it, but I remember that they kind of kept their dots on the blinding sleet. But correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm not playing with affliction warlocks anyway, so it's pretty rare we playing with that in soul shuffles as well. If you're a human, try to use your Icebound Fortitude only whenever you are in danger. Don't use it to just break stuns. You can do that. That's a reflex if you're playing Frost DK because you want to keep on doing your Pillar Frost go. But your Icebound Fortitude is a 30% wall. Do not forget that. It's actually a very good wall. Use your Will to Survive or Trinket to actually get out of stuns if you feel like you can get out of stuns to do damage. Lichborn, use it. Don't be afraid to not use it. It's also an increase in leech, so you will have some good stealth heals because of that. Your Gnaw and Leap should be a keybind. You can also just auto cast it. It's alright, but you can just become a lot better by just putting it on not autocast and have more control on it. You can be even more annoying towards casters and healers. What else? Don't be shy to use your CDs because your CDs are quite low CD, like I would say, to come off and come on. Your Death Advance actually gets you out of Spear of Bastion, gets you out of like Static Field Totem, gets you out of multiple situations. It makes you unstoppable, basically. He can also not knock you back, so if you're on Elemental Shaman, for example, you grip him, first reflex they're going to have is knock you back. What you're gonna do is actually Death Advance and then grip them, and they're going to knock you back in their despair. They're not going to knock you back, and they're going to probably die because of that. So that's also a good thing. Don't be afraid to change your talents up to get Wraithwalk, which is also a great talent. It's a 1-minute CD, but it's a root break, which is often the enemy of a Unholy DK, especially in 2s versus Survivor Hunter. You're going to get trapped. Please just play Wraithwalk and you're going to be fine. What else? What else? A trick. Yeah, try to like time the dark transformation with your apocalypse. I know it's hard. Sometimes you want to do just apocalypse because you have the occasion to do that, but having dark transformation with your force plus apocalypse just results with huge damage, and you want to time it together. You don't want to like have separate users. I'm still learning for that because I'm a trigger happy warrior in general. But as an Unholy DK, you want to actually like combine some cities together to have a lot of damage. What else? Do track your pet. Your pet can still die, although it got buffed. Raise that again if they're dead. It's only 30-second CD, so you're not losing too much. What else? I think that's everything I want to discuss, like tips and tricks for Unholy DKs. Of course, try to double grip whenever you can. And use your interrupts, please use your interrupts. I saw a lot of Unholy DKs not use their interrupts, although interrupts are a bit risky because of like precog. It's a bit less because they don't get a haste proc anymore from it. You just have to play very smart around your interrupts. It's still like one of the better melee interrupts in the game, so just play around that as well. I want to talk about like how to counter Unholy DKs. If you're a melee, go for the Unholy DK. There are like a few situations where you do not want to go for Unholy DK, and it is because there is a caster with the Unholy DK, but it is unacceptable if there is a warrior Unholy DK versus you that you're not going for the Unholy DK. Every time that happens, I'm actually laughing in myself. I'm saying to myself, look, that is a 6-0 lobby or a 4-2 lobby or a lobby where I'm going to gain some MMR because they're like not really smart. If you see double melee, and even with a Retribution Paladin, I would still go for the DK because it's a lot easier to kill than the Retribution Paladin with multiple defenses. Even if you're a caster, by the way. If you're a caster, don't be afraid. AMS is just not worthy anymore. Spell Warden is not a thing anymore. So they are not as tanky as in Season 1. And they are highly killable again. People are not using their Death Strike too much. They can still use it, but it doesn't do too much anymore. The healing is affected by dampening as well. So they are highly killable. Do not forget about that. If you want to counter Unholy DKs as well, train them. Try to slow them. Try to CC them. Try to make them really want to kite. If they're kiting, they're going to lose a bit of damage. They're not losing too much damage, like for example, a Shadow Priest would. For example, multiple casters have the thing, like for example, BM Hunter, where you're trying to go for him. They're not losing damage. It's the same for Unholy DK. Unholy DK, you can focus him. He's not going to lose too much damage, but he's still going to lose a lot of damage, especially if Festering Strikes. It's very hard to apply if you're actually running away. So wounds are going to be a bit less. Are going to spam more death calls and clawing shadows, but with less wounds applications, which is automatically going to result to less damage. So that's pretty much the tips I have for Unholy DKs. They're like killable. The thing that is making Unholy DK very strong is not the survivability or the CC. The CC was there in season 1, right? And it's not even in a nerf state. Because Asphyxiate was a 5-second stun. In PvP, it's now a 3-second stun. So, try to watch the damage from the Unholy DK and be careful for that. But it's also easier to kill Unholy DK whenever they are actually the target and not whenever you're targeting their mate. There is like occasions, for example, like Shadow Priest, Unholy DK is actually very hard for the people to go for Unholy DK. There are situations where you don't want to hit the Shadow Priest. You want to just interrupt or CC him because he has Scatter Assist, which is going to add even more damage. And a lot of good Shadow Priests are actually very hard to kill. So what you want to do is actually CC the Shadow Priest and go for the Holy DK. But that's, again, strategy. And it's also very hard to do that in Soul Shuffle. So I can also understand that. Windwalkers are going to eat Unholy DKs most of the time. So just go on Holy DK. And you'll see that you're going to have more wins if you're going for them. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to discuss about Unholy DK. If I missed something, please do tell me. I'm going to try to post more social full matches about my Unholy DK, more 2s, more 3s, more analysis, whatever I can. And you can then also understand that. I'm going to also post a bit of like a pad damage build, also a minion build if you want to see how it is like compared with this build. I personally really prefer this build because it's actually making me and reminding me of pre-mob times where we actually did a lot of damage by themselves and not really because of minions, because we didn't have like an army of minions on the enemy except whenever we had Army of the Dead, which was not usable in arenas, I think, in Mists of Pandaria, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. It was a long video, so please do like the video. It helps me a ton. Hopefully you watch till the end. Helps me with the algorithm, but also with just in general as a YouTuber, you know, more views equals more money. So it is just what it is. So if you watch the whole video, thank you to you. And again, yeah, I think I discussed everything. If you have any questions, shoot it in the comments. I'm not the best Unholy DK out there, but I hope I did make you understand Unholy DK. Just even 1%, it's still a victory for me. So let me know in the comment section below. Again, thank you. Have a great day. Be sure to stay safe. We'll catch you very soon in the next video. Bye. I just lost my voice.